Hello, brothers. My name is Doug Draper. I am a 1992 graduate from University of Kansas. I'd like to welcome you to On the Banks. On the Banks is a fraternity podcast where we meet brothers, share stories, and learn about the values of Phi Gamma Delta. Today, we have an amazing guest that I am very excited to speak with. It is Coach Bill Snyder, former coach for the Kansas State University Wildcats. So Bill has a 56-year coaching career, spans from 1962 to 2008. He's been a high school coach, a coordinator, and he had 2 stints at Kansas State University. He's recognized as one of the most influential leaders in college football. He has 2 Big 12 titles, 4 Big 12 North titles, and he's had numerous Coach of the Year awards, which is amazing. Finally, Bill was inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame in 2015. It was January 9th, to be certain. And he was also involved with the K-State program for the entire school's 300th, 400th, and 500th all-time wins, which is amazing. And in recognition of his contributions to the university, they named the Kansas State home field after him. It's now the Bill Snyder Family Football Stadium. So his leadership journey started at William Jewell College. We were just talking, it's the pledge class of 1960. And holy cow, has it been a ride since then. So I am absolutely thrilled to have Coach Bill Snyder on the Banks today. Bill, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you very much, Doug. I'm doing fine and appreciate the opportunity to visit with you.
Yeah, it's terrific. So let's just kind of jump into it, right? So what drew you to getting into a football career? So what was the draw and what was the why? Why did you want to get into coaching?
Well, it's really an interesting story. I mean, I have always, the short answer is I've always, since I can remember, felt that I would go into coaching and teaching, not necessarily just football, but perhaps all sports. I was an only child of a single parent mother. My mother and father separated when I was 6 years old. My mother worked in a department store in St. Joseph, Missouri, and we had very little money. So she rented an apartment, which was almost downtown St. Joseph, so she could walk to work and back and save money on bus fare.
Mm-hmm.
And being an only child and no one at home with me, she would send me to the YMCA. And so I kind of grew up in a YMCA, and the building where I was, YMCA building in St. Joseph, was conducive to all types of sports. So I was involved in sport activities virtually every single day from, I don't know, my 3rd grade on. And I always just felt at that time that that's what I would be in. I would always be in sports, and eventually I would end up coaching. And that's I went through grade school and high school. In college was the same thought in mind, that is eventually where I would end up, that I'd try to play sports, as much as I could, which I did. I wasn't very good, but I participated in all sports. I swam competitively as a young person and got to coach. Before I was out of high school, I was age group swimming coach in St. Joseph, and actually started the swimming program and helped coach it at William Jewell College. And then participated in football there, and Dr. Patterson, who was the athletic director and football coach, got me a teaching position in Gallatin, Missouri when I left William Jewell, and that started my career.
Nice. So you started at Gallatin, and that was high school related, and then you moved on to college, developing men focused, good character. Talk a little bit about the difference, if there are, between high school student and the coaching experience there versus the college experience. How do those compare and contrast?
Yeah, I think there obviously is the age difference, I think, as much as anything, probably promotes more of a feeling of security and confidence for young people that are in a college environment after they've been there for perhaps a year or so. uh, it was interesting for me because as I was participating in high school, I had two high school football coaches. Both of them were William Jewell graduates. And when I eventually went to William Jewell College, the programs were very, very similar. And, as I got to be around other student athletes at William Jewell, there was a closeness, I think, that prevailed that was very similar to high school. And so the programs were very much the same, and consequently, I felt that comfort at William Jewell. I had gone for one semester to the University of Missouri after my high school graduation, but I was, and I went because I'd always wanted to participate in football there or play. And at that time they had freshman football, and I was the 8th team quarterback on the freshman team, just the freshman team. So
Okay.
it was very obvious to me that I was not going to be have the opportunity to actually play. So I left, and Norris Patterson from William Jewell convinced me to go to William Jewell non-scholarship school. And I wasn't on scholarship at Missouri. I wasn't that good of a player, but it just became a great experience. And I thought the people that I met at William Jewell is a small school, at that time, maybe 1,000 students. The campus was extremely, every building was in a quadrant, and so everything was close to everything else. And the distance between one class and the other was no different than in my high school, going from one class to the other, even though it was in just one building. The point being that it was just, that was kind of a homeliness that was significant to me, and being around people that genuinely cared. So I think there was a great, similarity between that and as young student athletes, I think we embraced that, a great deal. So I don't think there was a dramatic difference, between high school and college for me.
Yeah.
Now when I went to the University of Missouri, it was extremely different. You were so much on your own, and you didn't have that family environment, around you. So it was different there.
Yeah. Well, we're a good tag team here, Bill, because you just answered one of the questions I was going to ask, which is why you decided on William Jewell. The next question is, why did you decide to get involved with Greek life? And then what was it about Phi Gamma Delta that caught your attention?
Well, it was interesting because that was not my intent when I went to William Jewell. And I just wanted to focus on trying to get my education and participating in football. And two of my friends from St. Joseph, Missouri, they went to a different high school, but people that I knew and I had spent a little bit of time with were both in the fraternity. And so it became the obvious choice, I think, because of them. There were players who I had not known previously that were in the football program that were in a variety of different fraternities there. But, you know, a couple that I became close to were Phi Gams, and they encouraged me to pledge to the fraternity, and I enjoyed the people there. You know, and most people don't say this, but the house mother, you know, was a marvelous lady, and she was very much like a mother, you know, to me. And while I was pledging, you know, she became, you know, a very impressive person in my life, and somebody that I knew that genuinely cared. And so, you know, I pledged and became a member because of those reasons, and it was basically because of people that I knew.
Yeah, you know, it's the house mother scenario. It's still out there. You know, there's chapters to this day that still have house mothers that have impact and keep 18 to 20-year-old kids in line. So that's interesting that your house mother had such an impact on you.
Well,
Great.
the person that has had the most impact on my life, you know, I'm 81 years old, and but it's still my mother. My mother was an amazing, amazing woman, and you know, any degree of success that I may have had is certainly because of her. And so that I was away from home for the first time in my life, and now here's a house mother that enters into my life, and all of a sudden she really didn't take the place of my mother, but she was a mother figure.
Right.
You know, yeah.
So jumping to the hybrid of Phi Gamma Delta and your coaching career, what are one or two things that you gained from your experience at William Jewell that you took into your coaching career, whether it's one or two specific things or whether it's just a mindset? How did that work?
Well, you know, again, you know, my mother taught me a value system, you know, if you will, and something that I admired her so much, and she just brought, you know, that life skills and values into my life. But when I became a Phi Gam, it refreshed those values, confirmed, I think, as much as anything, those values. And you know, the concept of being able to interact and social skills, you know, along with being able to help, to help others, the courtesy and the politeness that became prominent, and being able to make a commitment to, you know, those things of value in your life. Just you know, again, the intrinsic values of life, I think, were refreshed, you know, through my experiences with the Phi Gam house.
That's great. Is there any specific examples? Let me see how the best way to answer or ask this question is: you're in the trenches with your team, and you're in the middle of a game or middle of a practice. Is there any one thing that you're like, you know what, I learned this when I was an undergrad that would be applicable right now to motivate or take my team to kind of to the next level? Do you have one or two of those instances that you can remember?
Oh, I don't know that I could tell you a single incident, but I just know that that's in terms of, I have helped, I have tried to coach and teach young people in our program, whether at the high school level or college level, the same values. And yes, I think they present themselves, the values present themselves on the field as well as off of the field. And, you know, my intent was always to enhance the value system of a young person so that they could live a successful life in all aspects of their life, be it their family, be it their career fields, be it their education, academics, as well as on the football field. And those moments where they displayed those intrinsic values were ever present, you know, and they appeared constantly, you know. And it's an interesting thing. You know, when you get a little bit older, you don't kind of remember it this way, but I'm sure I was the same way when I went to college. There was that, you know, feeling that, you know, as a young person, that you kind of have it all in place. You know, you kind of understand it all, and you take things for granted, and you listen to, you know, certain values, and they just, you know, pass over your head. I think so much. You know, I always relate to, you know, you go into an athletic locker room, you know, any place in the country, and see a bunch of signs, you know, commitment and responsibility and discipline and hard work, etc. And, you know, and they're just signs, you know, and players take them for granted. You know, young people take them for granted because they see them all the time. And it's not such an important thing. And I'm relating this to the Phi Gamma Delta environment, because there was more of a teaching of those values than there was just saying, these are our values and now go live by them. Mm-hmm. And you know, we did that in our football programs. You know, that we had a program within our program for each of the values that we felt were significant. I give you an example of what I'm talking about. You know, one of the you know, values that we cherished was, you know, the concept of young people being able to interact well together, to be able to communicate, and to be able to have great trust, you know, in each other, and to be able to earn that trust. And we would have a period, you know, every day. So the program to help teach that every day, or virtually every day, we would pair our players off, and they would spend a couple of minutes in dialogue with their teammate about a topic that I would give them. And the topic would normally be very personal, and consequently they would have to have a great deal of trust to really share, you know, their feelings about this particular topic. And in doing so, it helped create even greater trust, you know, amongst their teammates. So they would pair off and they would address, you know, a topic. You know, it might be something along the lines of, you know, what's the most significant, important lesson that you've learned from a parent in your life? You know, what's the worst thing that you believe that you've ever done in your life? And just, I had, you know, hundreds and hundreds of questions that I would put out there, and they would address each other. The next day, they would exchange partners. And so consequently, if we had 130 in our program, they ended up having that experience with all other 129. And consequently, they really, they got to know each other. They began to trust each other, a great deal because of some of the answers that they would have to share. They wouldn't share with anybody other than, like I say, family or very, very dear friends. So I don't know where I'm going with all that. Nevertheless, it was one of those, a way in which we could kind of teach value.
Yeah,
And that was just one of the programs. We had a ton of them.
sure. Well, people in the program know the X's and O's, but when you're in the proverbial trenches, you need to have that trust. And to get trust, there's a lot of different ways, and one of which is to really understand your teammate, beyond just the football skills. So I was following you just right. It was perfect. As you know, in the fraternity, the lifeblood of a chapter and the fraternity as a whole is really with the recruitment side of it and making sure you can continue to bring in the right men to represent the fraternity. Whenever you recruited, right, what traits did you look at other than football talent, right? I mean, your programs were dynamite, and you're getting, blue chip recruits and the best of the best, but there's a lot more to a good player than just raw talent. So what type of characteristics did you look at when you were recruiting some of these amazing players coming out of high school?
Well, we would, I'll give you an example of how we approached it. I would have our coaches visit with, every coach goes in, visits with the player and visits with the coaches. I would have our coaches talk with the principal, the vice principal, with custodians, with people that worked in the cafeterias, with secretaries, with other students, to get an idea, from everyone, what kind of person that we are talking about, his characteristics as well as his intrinsic values, because that's what we wanted to have in our program. We wanted to have a quality young man who was a good person, who had the intrinsic values that were significant in life, and maybe not fully enhanced, but nevertheless the values were there to a certain degree. Young people that other people of significance respected. And obviously we wanted good students, and when I say a good student, it was the best student that one could be. You're always looking for someone that aspires to a certain level, and that being the highest possible level, and they work diligently to achieve that. May not always do it, but nevertheless, aspire and show the work habits that they have to try to achieve that level, whether it be in the classroom or in their own personal life or on an athletic field as well. So the youngsters then would, if people spoke well of them, and we would invite them in, and if they were willing to come and visit our campus, then I would always have young people, spend time with a variety of different people in our program. So they weren't just always around coaches. It was, I would have them spend time with the president of our university, with people in our athletic department, secretaries. I would always have them spend time with my personal secretary to see how they interacted with older women. And we would have them visit with professors on campus and instructors, not just to learn about engineering or business or whatever career field they might have an interest in, but also to have dialogue that would take it down to a personal level. So once again, that you get maybe a variety of different perceptions about the quality of person that we're working with. So, we went into, I think pretty decent detail in that regard.
Yeah. Well, it was evident that building good leaders and people with good character definitely showed up on the field if you're focused on like I said, the X's and O's and the scoreboard. So I was going to call this rapid fire, Coach, right now, but I'm just going to say, let's talk about first thing that comes to your mind. So I have 3 or 4 things I'm going to throw at you, and you give me some feedback. The first one is about our saying with persistence. Now, I had heard that you had that saying on your desk, but the unique thing about it is, from my understanding, it was facing towards you, not away from you. So it's not facing towards the visitors in your office, but facing you, obviously as a reminder. So tell us about persistence and that statement and what it means to you and why you had it that direction on your desk.
Well, I wanted that reminder, from the very beginning, because, when you're involved in coaching and particularly as a head coach of a program, you have so many responsibilities. Now, I came through the program where the head coach had to accept more responsibility, didn't have to, but should accept more responsibility than perhaps in this day and age, where you've got, 500 people in your program that are all assigned all of these different sidebars. And so I wanted to be, on top of all of it. So having to go from one thing to the next, just every single day. My work days were 16 to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it was just constant on the go. I didn't eat lunch. I didn't eat dinner. I just worked through those periods of time. And it took great persistence, because everything didn't fall in place just exactly like you wanted it to all the time. And you have to deal with one issue after another. And even when things were going good, you want to do enhance and improve upon that particular element. So it was just ongoing, and perseverance was the order of the day. If perseverance wasn't present, then it would have been too easy to get up and go home early.
Nice. Very good. Coach, I had trouble hearing you a little bit on that one. So my next questions, I'm not sure. That's the beauty of doing these Zooms, right? I mean, you got to go with it in the moment. So thank you. So the next question that I had was, what was your proudest on-field memory? With 300 wins, 400 wins, and 500 wins, there's a lot of them, but I wasn't sure if there was one that may have come to your mind.
Well, I don't know if there was one in particular. Normally as coaches, we remember our defeats more readily than we do, the victories. I think probably the entire first season was really a proud moment for me. And we only won one game, but it was the only game that any player in that program had ever won in their history at Kansas State University. And the most significant thing was the fact that as young people, they improved every single day throughout the entire season. They improved every single game throughout the season. And that was, the history of that was that I had taken this young group. We had 45 on scholarship when that was when you could have 95. And so we were very limited in that respect. And I took all of these young guys out on the football field in the spring before our very first season in 1989. and I turned on the scoreboard, and I gathered all the players around, and I shared with them that that the scoreboard was not going to be what I assessed or judged their performance by. That my evaluation was going to be based strictly upon their effort towards improvement every single day as a person, as a student, and as an athlete. And at the end of the season, having won only one game, I was able to, because people were telling me at that time, you'd better get out of there or you're going to end up being an insurance salesman the rest of your life. Nothing wrong with insurance salesmen, but
yeah,
they were. But I said I had never been more, I had never felt more strongly that this would be a successful program than I was at the end of that season. And it was strictly based upon the fact that those young people did get better and better and better and better throughout the course of the year. And then, the next year they won 4 games, and the next year they won 5, and the next year they won 7, and the next year they won 9, and then they won 10. And then they went, 5 or 6 years and won 11 each year. So it was just that continual improvement, which was what we, really based our program on. And that was one of the values, that was so significant for us. And was it was one of the values that was promoted in the Phi Gamma house, when I was at William Jewell as well.
Good. So let's talk about the Phi Gamma house. You just made mention of that. So we talked about proudest moment or season that you just recapped for us. Can you remember a proud moment when you were at the Fiji house, something of that struck you as like, hey, I'm in the right spot, I made the right decision, or this brother impacted me in a certain way? Is there anything that pops out to you during your undergraduate experience within the chapter?
Well, I think it was the latter that you just mentioned. There were, and not just one, but there were so many young people there that I got to know, that I felt so strongly about, that became good friends, and it was because of their values and their their friendship, the fact that they genuinely cared. People were just very, very gracious, very helpful, and that was truly significant to me. I think probably the fact that I actually graduated was significant in my career as well. I had started I was not a real good student in high school, and at William Jewell, I became a pretty decent student. I was a 3.3 GPA, so that wasn't all bad. Far better than I had been in high school, and so I had to have help around me and people that encouraged me to to really focus on my studies.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think my mantra sometimes is D for diploma. Sometimes I feel like I learned a little bit more outside of the classroom than in, but I can appreciate what you just said. So just 2 more questions for you in our discussion. So as you know, the show is called On the Banks, and its origins is related to the chance meeting of a couple of Phi Gams that didn't know each other when they went out to the gold rush in 1849, and they happened to meet on the banks of the Sweetwater River, which literally exists, and it's in Wyoming in the middle of nowhere. So we like to ask our guests if they've ever had an on the banks moment, because that's what this show's about. People are meeting you and learning about you in the proverbial on the banks. So in all of your tenure through your coaching career or in your personal life, have you ever had an on the banks moment or a chance meeting with a Phi Gam that was a little bit out of context or surprising to you?
Well, I don't think that any of them were out of context. I have I have had those chance meetings with numerous Phi Gams, and some of them are in the coaching profession. Some of them are just people at functions that I might be at or speaking engagements, and people would come up and say, you know, I understand you're a Phi Gam, or somebody would, you know, you always shake hands with people that you meet, and somebody would give you the, you know, the Phi Gam handshake, and that would kind of surprise me a little bit, because I had, you know, over years I had kind of forgotten, you know, you know, how that worked. But you know, I can't, you know, I can't think of one significant moment. They're all significant, but one that you know, stood out above, you know, and above all others. But there are so many. I would say, you know, in the vicinity of 100. That's plus or minus, and
Yeah.
but I meet quite a few. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll end the conversation, which is asking you for some advice. A lot of the listeners for the show, not only are they graduates, but I know a lot of undergraduates have been listening to the shows, and I wanted to get your take. So rewind and looking for advice on what you would give your 20-year-old Phi Gam self, right? Had an amazing career in coaching and an amazing life, impacted so many people. Looking back and talking to the folks right now and the brothers that are in the chapters, undergrads, what advice would you give them knowing what you know now?
Well, I would think, you know, number one is make your education important to you. Number two, enhance your friendships and relationships. Extend yourself to meet people and engage with them. I would suggest that that one would, you know, observe and learn from others on a day-to-day basis. I would recommend that that one would organize their day very precisely. You know, I think many people, you know, write down things to do, but, you know, I would highly encourage, you know, because there is so much, you know, that can enter your plate, and you want to do justice to each and every venture that you have, and to be able to do it, you know, from a time basis. Many people do it that way, you know, what I'm going to do at 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7:30, et cetera, I think becomes, you know, significant in one's organization about his day. I think, you know, caring about other people, trying to help other people, you know, be that person that can reach out to others and provide assistance when it's needed. I encourage all the players, they get away from that. I say players,
Brothers.
students, brothers, to call their parents on a very regular basis. That's something that, you know, you go away to college and, you know, you miss home and you're calling every day, and then pretty soon it's every other day, and pretty soon it's once a week, and pretty soon parents have to call you. And I think it's important to, you know, continue to stay in close touch, you know, with your parents and with your family. You know, just define, you know, your value system, you know, what is important to you in terms of positive values that are good to have and will help benefit you in becoming successful in your life. And know what those are, study those, and then follow and enhance those values, you know, every single day.
Mm-hmm. I think that's tremendous advice, right? Slow down, get organized, and live the life that you want to do. want to be. So that's terrific. Well, Coach, I can't thank you enough for joining us on the show. I've learned a lot about you personally and your successful career and your engagement with Phi Gamma Delta. And I know I speak on behalf of everybody that's watching and everybody that's been involved with the fraternity. Is thank you for being a tremendous ambassador for Phi Gamma Delta, and thank you for having such an impact in our organization and at K-State. As a KU grad, it pains me a little bit to say I'm glad you had impact at K-State and the Wildcats, but absolutely, you're a tremendous member of our fraternity, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, you're quite welcome, and I want you, being a KU grad as you are, I want you to know that one of my dear friends is Doug Girard. Doug is the chancellor at KU. He was, I went through a bout of cancer, throat cancer a few years ago, and Doug at the time was the head of the oncology department at KU Med Center before he became the president at the University of Kansas, and he was my physician. And he is, so you've got my point is that you've got a wonderful person as leading the University of Kansas.
Excellent. Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'd like to thank all the brothers and listeners today for joining us on the Banks. We look forward to seeing you again, where we will meet new brothers, share their stories, and embrace the values of our fraternity. And until that time, I wanted to leave you with, I'm mighty proud to be a Fiji. Thank you.